David Lloyd Leisure Centre, 242 Christchurch Road, Ringwood, under Section 34 of the Licensing Act 2003. In accordance with Section 35 of the Licensing Act, where relevant representations have been made to the licensing authority in response to a premises licence application, the licensing authority must hold a hearing to consider them. Having regard to those relevant representations, the licensing authority may take such steps as it considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. The options in taking those steps are outlined for the subcommittee and the parties in the report at page 7 of the pack, paragraphs 27 to 29. The report outlines for the parties that some of the representations received by the licensing authority raise issues relating to the proposed changes to the sporting areas and courts within the leisure centre. These do not concern licensable activities and so are therefore unrelated to the promotion of the licensing objectives, and the subcommittee cannot rule on those. Similarly, reference to planning permission and parking are not for this subcommittee to consider, and I will remind members of the subcommittee and the parties that the application to be determined today relates to the licensable activities applied for only and the impact of those licensable activities on the 4 licensing objectives, which are set out in the report at page 6 of the pack at paragraph 18. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We'll now move to ask the licensing manager to present the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. We have received an application to vary the premises licence for David Lloyd in Ringwood. The site is a leisure centre providing a range of sporting activities for its members. The current licence permits the sale of alcohol on site and also some regulated entertainment. There is a club room which provides alcoholic and non-alcoholic drinks and food to patrons during the day through to early evening. The variation application is required as there is a small increase to the alcohol licensed areas, and the Licensing Act 2003 requires a full variation rather than a minor. There are also changes proposed to the sporting areas at the centre. However, these do not fall within the remit of the Act and this hearing. We've also received representations against the variation. However, many state their objections to the changes proposed to the sporting activities at the site. Since the grant of the premises licence, we have not received any complaints as a result of the licence activity, and no changes to the current trading hours are requested. Objectors have also referred to planning issues. However, only matters pertaining to the licensing objectives under the Licensing Act may be considered. This application is brought before members to determine, as we have received objections to the application from members. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Krista. Can I just refer you to page 43 on the main report, which is a plan. It's marked Appendix 5. And just to clarify that the only 2 areas that we are concerned with today from the licensing perspective are the 2 areas marked in yellow.
That is correct, Chair.
Thank you. I think it's important to clarify this right at the outset. That's the only 2 areas under the Licensing Act that we are able to consider today. Now I'd like to ask the applicant to present their case.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, councillors. So I'm joined today by the General Manager of the David Lloyd Club, Chris Linder, and he's been the General Manager since August 2023, so he's been in place for some time. Very briefly, David Lloyd Clubs are, they would say, Europe's premier health and fitness sort of clubs provider of those facilities. They've operated for over 40 years as a business, and they own over 100 clubs throughout the UK and over 20 in the European mainland as well. In addition to core activities such as rackets and health and fitness, a number of clubs will have things like spas and food and beverage provision, which will include having a premises licence. The club premises itself is located in Ringwood, and it is bounded, as you'll see on the satellite image I placed into my bundle that I submitted, to the west and the south by sort of greenery and woodland. There are some residential properties to the east, but they are predominantly protected by the remaining David Lloyd building in terms of their visibility of those external areas. And I'll talk to that in a little bit more. There is a scheme of works that will be taken forward this year, changes to both the licensed and unlicensed areas. And as you'll appreciate, you cannot rule and have no remit in terms of the unlicensed areas of the club. So my focus of my submission, you'll be pleased to know, is just going to be on the club room and the outside area where the licensed area is increasing. What does the premises currently license? Well, it has its club room in place, which is a typical sort of David Lloyd facility, whereby they serve food and drinks, and there are an ancillary alcoholic sort of beverages as well. It's very much not the main part of their business. The changes put forward under this application are a reconfiguration of the servery counter and then a small increase of the licence area behind that, but that is not accessible to the public. The reason they've done that is because it gives better access to staff for things such as the ice for drinks and to the dishwasher. So it's mainly just a sort of a technical change just to sort of give better access to staff and a small, say, increase in the licence area because of that. So it's a very sort of small increase in the licence footprint. There are some other changes to the seating and screens in the club room, but I would say nothing that gives concerns for the licensing objectives. For the outside terrace, you will see from the plan submitted, from the current plan, there is already quite an extensive outside area that is licensed, which includes a terrace area and the sort of outside pool areas. So that is already part of its license. I'm sure members have seen that, but if you want me to hold up the plan, I can do. So it's kind of the outdoor pool area, sort of bounded in green. So what they're seeking to do is just a minor increase in that licensed area down to this other part of the terrace. Now, for clarification, that terrace is already there and has been there for a number of years, but it wasn't licensed. And with the vagaries of licensing law, you can still use that area for customers. Alcohol can still be consumed in that area by way of off sales. But as technology improves, what David Lloyd likes to do as a matter of good practice is to make sure any spaces where alcohol might be consumed are part of their licensed area, particularly when you have apps coming in and members can sort of order alcoholic drinks and other food and beverage through an app. Although strictly speaking, they do not need to have that as part of the licensed area. As a matter of good practice, they want it there anyway. But it can be used already. It can be used and has been used without issues and without incident. In terms of the representations before you, it's gone through a full consultation period of the application, both in the newspaper and with notices on site, and you have no objections today before you from any of your responsible authorities. That's probably the most salient point I can make before you today. They are your key advisors in the licensing objectives, and I suggest the absence of objections from them must be taken as a positive inference. The police, of course, are your key advisor in matters of crime and disorder, and you look to them as your main source of advice in those respects. Guidance paragraphs 2.1 and 9.12. The police have no concerns, otherwise they'd be here. Similarly, your environmental health team are your experts in noise nuisance and noise disturbance. Again, they have raised no objections, and I'd ask you to place a great deal of weight upon that fact, that none of those responsible authorities are here today before you. And indeed, not only have they not raised objections, none of them have suggested any changes to the application. They've not requested amendments or extra conditions be added. So they have no issues whatsoever. Again, I would say that's the same for your health and safety team as well, and all your responsible authorities. But you do have some objections before you, and you'll be aware the legal framework for your decision making is one of an evidence-based decision. The premises is not within a cumulative impact area, therefore the onus evidentially is always placed upon objectors to reduce the evidence as to why the application should be refused or amended. I would suggest that evidence is not here before you today, and speculation as to what could happen or might happen is not evidence. It's fears about what might happen. It is just that speculation. There are concerns, I think, are raised to do with the racket sports and a reduction in that amenity, which are not part of the application. And I think we suggest that is the main concern that a lot of the objectors have. Mr. Linder has been in numerous meetings with members of the club raising issues, and it is always those issues that have come up, not issues with the reconfiguration of the club room or the outside terrace from his experience. And again, your policy is quite clear. Parking, planning and transport are not matters to be taken into account by a licensing committee. Again, that's reiterated in your report. In terms of the club room then, again, there was a concern in the objection about it could be a large and late operating bar. For clarification, the avoidance of doubt, any increase to the licence footprint is quite minimal and primarily is that section that goes behind the servery counter, and no licence hours are being requested to be extended. In fact, the club has later licence hours than it chooses to operate. It usually closes a lot earlier than those licence hours permit, but there's no request to operate later at all. And I cannot see, nor have I particularly seen any concern raised about the layout changes to the club room. I haven't seen those in the objections. The outside area is raised with the potential for noise generation. As I say, this is not a new area. It's been in operation for some time without issues, so club members can use it, again, with no complaints or issues. There is an intention to place a television out there. Television is not a licensable activity as long as the TV is played live. It is not a licensable activity, so again, would not be under the remit of a licensing matter. But as an explanation, as you might be interested, it will usually be played on a very low level or muted, as is typical amongst all David Lloyd clubs. The only time the volume might be up a little bit more is when there might be a sporting event on the TV and club members might want to watch that. That's the main intention, might be there, but generally otherwise it will be in the background. Only residential properties are to the east of this area that's been brought into the outside licensed area. And I said the building, if you look at the plan, the building has sort of the kitchen area and other parts of the structure that block to the east as well, which will hopefully block any noise. And we wouldn't imagine there'll be particular noise issues in any regard. In terms of objections, there are none from anyone living in the vicinity. Again, you'll have seen from the satellite views I've placed before you that I believe the nearest objector, as I calculate it, is about 1 kilometre or so away. So no single objector can have their residential amenity impacted by this particular application. Again, car parking issue is not relevant, but I thought I'd want to touch on it anyway, just because it might be sensible to do so. Some issues about car park safety have been raised. To Chris's knowledge, none have been ever raised directly with the club in terms of some of these concerns that are now being put before you. But those points are taken on board. David Lloyd treat health and safety matters very seriously. They've done an audit of past, issues that might have risen with the car park over a number of years, and the matters being referred to the health and safety team to look into. I say it's not a licensing issue, so I'll leave it at that. But that's something they take seriously, and it will be referred on to the correct people within the company. Which addresses the licensing changes and a little bit beyond. I'm not going to speak about the other issues that have been raised because they're not ones for this forum. But of course, David Lloyd, Chris and the club are always there for anyone who's not satisfied, or they're happy to listen to concerns of club members about these matters. But if they are relevant to licensing, I will speak to them. But anything else, I will not do so at this moment in time. And with that, I respectfully ask that you consider the application, commend it to you, and that it be granted without any changes necessary or required. Thank you.
Okay. Now I'll go to Mr. Sweeney as the objector to question the applicant. Can you keep your questions as short and direct as possible without making statements?
Okay, my name's Tony Sweeney. I'm a member at David Lloyd, and I've been operating in the Ringwood area for over 20 years. And I'm here to represent many members and local residents. And I just, on a point of clarification there was reference to there being no objections from local residents. I'd like to bring your attention to the written objection for the resident of 224 Christchurch Road, which is in the pack.
Before you do that, I need to. What's the name of the person you're up to? Can you pass that name to the clerk, please?
I've got a copy of it here.
I may be mistaken, but I'm not aware of that address as an objector.
So what's the name of the person? Sorry, could you see what's going on? So that's from Mr. Johnson. Okay, so Mr. Johnson, that's in the, Mr. Sweeney is referring to the submission from Mr. Johnson, which was in the supplementary pack of papers that went round, and it's headed like that, Appendix 3.
Okay.
So Mr. Johnson is a party to the agreement.
But
I have his address.
have we received notification that he is willing to be represented by Mr. Sweeney?
I think the opposite. He said he wouldn't want to be represented by anyone, and I have Mr. Johnson not at that address just mentioned. I have him at 136. I won't say it with it on the recording, but
the address, but I think that's right. Mr. Johnson didn't ask to be represented by Mr. Sweeney.
just go to my legal advisor and check that then Mr. Sweeney cannot claim to be representing him at this meeting.
That's correct, Chair.
Sorry, I didn't claim to be representing him. I was just pointing out that there had been a local objection because it was stated that there hadn't been one.
I've heard you say that you will also be representing local members.
Yes, I'm coming on to that. Yeah, sorry.
The only three individuals that I've got that you have authority to represent is Mr. Mears, Julie Walham and Mrs. H. Porter.
Okay. Right. On that point, there has been correspondence. I have authority to act on behalf of John Garnett, who is also a local resident and lives in Christchurch Road.
Chairman, Mr Garnett is not a party to the hearing.
Yeah. So in which case you're not allowed to introduce anything on that behalf.
I had already introduced it. So, because I clarified, I was asked for my address and I clarified my home office, my office address in Ringwood, and that I was representing Mr. John Garnett, who was a local resident, and I included an email from him confirming that.
Mr Garnett did not write in during the time that representation should be made and is not a party to the hearing.
On that basis, according to the process we have to follow, Mr. Garnett not being a party to this hearing, you cannot raise issues relevant to anything he may have said.
Okay.
Can I ask you to return to the question?
Yes. Okay. On another matter of clarification, I would like to ask,
Mr.
or I can ask.
You can ask. Yeah, sorry, you were talking about points of clarification. You're here to ask questions of the applicant at this point. Certainly, you can ask for clarifications, but just purely questions relating to the issues today. And can I just remind you, page 43 of the pack, it's purely in relation to the application in front of us, which is the two yellow areas marked on the map on page 43.
Okay. So firstly, can I ask if you were made aware that I had asked for this hearing to be adjourned due to inadequacies in publicising the application?
I was handed something this morning, was the first I noted.
And have you been able to read that?
I have read that, and we would not agree with an adjournment if that's the...
No, but do you agree with what I said within that? I.e. that there were insufficient notices on site and that advertising the application in the Lymington Times...
Can I stop this at this point and go to my legal advisor, and I might need to seek clarification over the process.
Chairman, I think that point can probably be clarified with the licensing manager.
Thank you, Krista.
Thank you, Chair. The application was advertised in a public notice in the Lymington Times. The Lymington Times covers the New Forest area and is really the newspaper of choice for the New Forest area. I would say 99.9% of all applications are placed in the Lymington Times because it has an online presence as well as a hard copy. And as for the public notices, my compliance officer here, Peter, went out and took photographs of where you place the notices. Don't know whether you want to expand on that, but there were blue notices placed on the site for people to see. There's no requirement, just to clarify, there's no requirement as in planning applications to notify local residents. So the application has been advertised as per the Licensing Act 2003.
So just to summarise that, we have complied as a licensing authority with the process of advertising. Yeah.
Okay. So is that the answer to my question about your response to my request for an adjournment? Yes. Okay. Am I allowed to comment on that response?
Mr Sweeney, we're here today to look at the licensing application,
Yes.
and that licensing application refers to two areas which have been which are included in the report, specifically to draw your attention to page 43, which is the outside area in yellow and the area in yellow slightly below and to the right of that. Those are the only matters that this hearing can actually address, and that's where I would ask you to address your questions.
Yes. I am coming on to that. I just wanted to make it clear that I had requested an adjournment and the basis of that request. So that's what I'm asking about at the moment. That is a very important part of this, because I have spoken to many, many members at David Lloyd, and they were not aware of these notices, and they were not aware of this application because it had not been correctly advertised on site, and they do not buy the Lymington Times. So that was my first point on that. My second point...
So just to address that point, I stopped the question at that point to enable us to check the process which is conducted by our licensing department as to the correctness of advertising and the means in which we do this in general for applications in the New Forest area. The response of the licensing team, and which this hearing has to take account of, is that the processes for the application have been fully followed, and we determined that we would go ahead based upon that at the beginning of the hearing, which you would have heard us agree. We checked to see whether there was any impediment for us not proceeding. So the decision of this hearing is that we will proceed. And so we are proceeding. The queries and the views of members may not have seen that do not affect the process of this hearing, which is conducted purely on the basis of those two parts on page 43.
Yes, I understand that, but the reason I am bringing it to your attention is because if members and local residents had been aware of this application, there would have been more local residents who would have objected. That's all. That's my point.
Mr Stewart-Sweeney, that's noted.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I just add, as you'll see in your report pack, there were actually a further 21 representations received by us. It's at paragraph 22. So there were 21 other ones received. However, they didn't meet any of the criteria to be relevant and didn't address any of the licensing objectives. So actually, in all, there was 21 plus 13 people who had actually sent in representations. To say that it wasn't seen by anybody is slightly unclear.
On clarification, I didn't say anybody. I was responding to the point made earlier that there hadn't been any local objections. Now, the members of the club were made aware very late in the day through meetings that it came out very late. So those members who were at the club, who attended those meetings, had time to object, not very much time. It's the local residents who would not have seen the notices, were not present at those meetings because they weren't members of David Lloyd, that wouldn't have been aware and therefore were not given the opportunity to object. That is my point.
Mr Sweeney, you've made that point.
Thank you.
We have noted it, and you heard the replies from the licensing officers.
Thank you. I'd now like to come on to the plan themselves. Now, you have said to me that the only thing under consideration today is the plan that was included in Appendix 5, which is, I can show that, this plan.
Yes.
Okay.
Is this still a question for the applicant?
Yes, it is.
I have stated that the area of concern for this application is that highlighted in yellow on that particular map. There are other maps which show various different parts of the club layout, but the licensing application relates purely to those two areas. And any questions that you put should be limited to those unless you can show in your question that they are relevant to elsewhere.
And that's what I intend to do. Okay. So I refer to the plan in Appendix 5. This was the plan that we received very late on in the day. Initially, we were only sent a small extract. The plan is blurred, it's a very poor copy, and it was very difficult to interpret this plan in any accurate form. On the 12th of May,
You ask questions of the applicant, you will have the opportunity to explain everything you want to explain when you do your representation. So you're purely, I'm asking you to ask questions which should be short and succinct and clearly relate to the application.
can I confirm that's the plan that you referred to earlier? No, that is the plan in Appendix 5. Not. Okay, I'm coming on to those plans, yeah. So that was the initial blurred plan. Then on the 12th of May, when the full pack of information came out, there were two further plans. Can I refer you to these plans? 1971.1. This one. Yep. And that refers to a green area being outlined, sale of alcohol and recorded music. Existing. Have you seen that plan? Yeah. I then refer you to plan, it's quite a long number, this one, 0870-210-4, dated the 17th of the 10th, 24, titled Stage 5 Tender, and more importantly, licensing plan as proposed. And that shows a green area highlighted, a green outlined area, sale of alcohol as per the original plan, and recorded music. So you also have that plan. And do you accept that both of those plans were included in the pack that was issued on the 12th of May? For clarity. Thank you. So for clarification, we have the clarity that these two plans are relevant because they are showing the detail of what is proposed. They are not the same as the plan in Appendix 5. The plan in Appendix 5 is just an extract, and it does not show the full extent of the green area, and that's very important.
Could you turn that into a I'm going to, sorry, I can see Krista is coming in here. Again, I'm going to go to the licensing manager.
Thank you, Chair. I think, are you alluding to the fact that the licensed area has increased via the green line?
I'm coming on to that.
Well, if you are, the current plan, as my colleague here will say, it is covered. So the current plan is actually green line. So there is no change to the green line. That is already on the current plan, and that is already a licensed area. That's why it wasn't included in the pack or my reports, because the only areas that are actually increasing are the two highlighted yellow areas. The green line through around the outdoor pool area is already licensed. So there are no changes to that. I think Mr. Robson will confirm that.
I will let you ask the question.
Okay, could you clarify that, please?
There are changes of licence footprints. That is what this application is about. So there's adjustments to the club room, there's adjustments to the outside licence areas.
Thank you for that clarification. I now refer you to the as proposed plan, which shows the extent in its entirety. You will see on this plan what I did, and I did this literally last night because I haven't had a lot of time because this has all been a bit rushed. I overlaid the two plans on site. And this is only a crude assessment, I have to admit that. You know, I'm not a draftsman. But what I have indicated on this plan, hatched and shaded in yellow, is the approximate increase in the area around the swimming pool for licensing and recorded music. So, would you like to have a closer look at that? Yeah. I crudely estimate, and I accept this is crude, that that area is approximately the area of 2 tennis courts. You can see at the side of the plan there are tennis courts marked out. So can I ask you the question? Firstly, do you accept that there is an increase in the area proposed for the licensed boundary as defined by the green line on the latest plan as proposed, dated 17th of October 24?
The overall square metres changes
I haven't given you that.
either way, but you'll see the green line goes further towards the pool on the left side. So there's a reduction in the line. Do I have calculated? If you have a specific issue with that, I get the last objectives. Please see the question.
I do have a specific concern. I haven't ignored that.
Mr. Sweeney, I need to again check because this is about the existing licensed areas. So I'm going to go back to the licensing manager because and ask her, is she satisfied that the plans that we have contain the existing licensed areas and that we are only referring to the 2 small areas within this application?
Yes, that is the nature of the application.
Again, can I just clarify that the plans, my colleague just pointed out, these plans are different scales.
You can't overlay them, sorry.
And I draw you back to the fact that we are purely, in terms of the application, we are not considering the existing licence. That is a granted licence. We are looking only at the 2 yellow areas, which are an extension to the licence, and that is the subject of this application.
I'm sorry, but I disagree with that. He said that it was the green line as per the latest plan, and that includes a bigger area. I accept that they are slightly different scales and that the overlaying isn't accurate, but it's giving you an indication of the increase. I accept it's not accurate. But what he did confirm was that we are considering the plan which says, as proposed, and it shows you the green line of that extension. We are not just considering the Appendix 5 plan. That is wrong. I'm sorry.
I'm going to ask for a comment from my legal advisor that in terms of the accuracy of what we're discussing today, are we happy that we are just concerned with the 2 areas marked in yellow on the plan, and that is the extent of this application?
That's exactly it, Chairman, yes.
Mr Sweeney, would you restrict your questions, please, to the matters under consideration by this hearing?
I'm very sorry, but over here, we had it confirmed that this was under consideration, not just the 2 yellows on Appendix 5. I specifically asked the question. That cannot be ignored. It's very important for this hearing that the correct plan is under consideration. Very important.
Mr Robson, in brief, you are happy that it is the seating area and the area behind the food preparation? Mr Robson, I am going to say that that is the decision of this hearing, that we are here to consider purely the area of seating and the area around the food preparation area, as we have discussed, which is the areas marked in yellow on that appendix. So will you please restrict your questions and your concerns under the Licensing Act to those 2 areas?
I will move on, but I'd like it noted that I do not agree with that resolution. It was clearly stated that the other plan was the plan submitted. If it wasn't that plan, why was it sent out with the information pack on the 12th of May, having specifically requested more detailed plans so that we could undertake an accurate assessment? It was sent to us on that basis. It clearly defines it, and I'm afraid that
Mr. Sweeney,
that answer
you
is
will
not
get an
correct.
opportunity to say all this. Will you ask
I
questions
will.
purely as requested?
Okay. Could I think you did confirm it earlier. You said that the area on Appendix 5, let's find the Appendix 5 plan, i.e. the yellow area here, has already been constructed and has already been used for the sale of alcohol. Okay, has it been used for the sale of alcohol? Right. So it's okay for people to drink alcohol in that area, but not to buy alcohol in that area. Okay. Right. So if a member of staff was to take alcohol to that area, it having been ordered at the bar, would that constitute a sale?
That would be off-sale from the bar area, with the alcohol for sale, so that would be consumption in that space.
Because obviously, you have confirmed that that area has already been constructed. The decking has been laid out, the seating area is there, and it's all in position.
Correct. For clarity, many of service will be governance by the way. Could have been in place,
So, would you accept that this area is therefore a retrospective application?
No, it is not been used for sale. Just to bring it to license.
And therefore is the intention to use that area for the sale of alcohol?
The flexibility there, but they can do so. They may use it as per the other outside license. It brings it into license, but which is all they do is an activity practice.
So, for clarification again, the area that's already been constructed, the yellow area, this is on Appendix 5 pan, is currently not used for the sale of alcohol, only consumption, and the intention is that it will be used or could be used for the sale of alcohol.
Could be used as per all the other outside areas. To give them flexibility, maybe on a summer's day, if the little bar or make use of my use of the app from
And when you say all the other areas, you are referring to the Green Line area. Could I just clarify the Green Line area?
Green Line area, so the external license area.
Could you just confirm the Green Line area as denoted on that plan? Thank you. This is a difficult one for me because I've got another point about the swimming pool area, which you're saying I can't raise, but I do need to ask a question about it.
I'll give you some leeway on that.
Thank you. So the area around the swimming pool is an extensive area which is within the Green Line, and there have been recent works in that area, clearing hedges and bushes during the nesting season, I have to add, to extend that seating area. It's been about 80 metres of hedging and removed. So that area, within that new Green Line, those works are already underway, partly complete, partly completed, and is within an area where alcohol is sold and consumed. Could you confirm that?
I'm not aware it is, again, it's probably
Yes, so it's not sold out there currently, but we have removed the bushes from around the pool side.
very, very rare that was set up for something outside space. Sometimes do it by putting in a mobile app, something for the most part, it would be appropriate to the country to say it, that's legal to do it from the bar area and then to outside space.
So for this application, for this licensing application, that area will become licensed for the sale of alcohol. The Green Line area. Not all of it, because no, not most of it. That's the point I'm making.
Mr. Sweeney, if you have concerns about the areas in which alcohol has been sold, that would be subject to a different process in terms of a form of check-in with the licensing authority to see whether the licensing laws are being adhered to. And it's not subject to this hearing, which is the extension of the licence area as per the plans. If you're saying that alcohol is being sold outside the current licence, that is a different matter altogether. That would come under the need to review or to check with that. Would my legal advisor just confirm that the accuracy of what I've just said?
Yeah, that's correct, Chairman. It would be a matter if there were concerns about the way that the licensed area is being used, or that if Mr. Sweeney had a concern that it wasn't within the remit of the current licence, it would be a review application as opposed to the matters that are being dealt with today. Yes.
Mr. Sweeney, can I bring you back to the two areas? If you have any issues about the way in which the current licence is being operated, that is a matter for a different process, which you would need to bring to the attention of the licensing team.
As I would also need to bring all the planning breaches to the attention of the planning team in a similar vein.
If you hold a view that there are breaches of any legislation, they need to be brought to the attention of the relevant authorities. So if you say there are planning breaches, that would need to go to the planning officers of this council. And if there are any, if you are stating there are any breaches of the current licence, that would need to be brought to the attention of the licensing team. We are here today to consider an application for the extension of the licensable area within the club as per the areas which I've mentioned to you and has been pointed out to you. The existing licence is not here to be reviewed. This is a variation in effect of that existing licence.
Okay. I just wanted to refer you to the objection I referred to you earlier. So this is D. Johnson. I'm not representing him, but there are points within his objection which contradict.
Sweeney, can I just check with my legal advisor, is this a relevant question? Is he allowed to raise these points?
I guess on that point, we'd have to just see what the question actually is and whether it's representing a point made by Mr. Johnson or whether it's something otherwise.
Sweeney, could you clearly state what the question is and or what the points are, and that the legal advisor will respond?
Okay. I'd like you to specifically bring you to section 4 in his objection, which goes a long way to amplifying my points.
I believe this is page 55 starting.
I haven't got it numbered. It's agenda item 3. Yeah. And it's in particular paragraphs, points, not paragraphs, 4 and 5.
That's page 6 in the supplementary, I think. Found them, Richard. 4 and 5.
Chairman, I don't know the exact content of the question, but at the moment, as that I understand is not part of Mr. Sweeney's submission, that would have to be predicated on what Mr. Johnson is submitted by way of objection and would inevitably be conveying Mr. Johnson's representations, not his own, which would be outside since he's not able to represent him.
Can I refer you to your letter of the 3rd of May? And to your points, for licensing objections. And the second paragraph in particular. Do you still stand by that statement?
For the answer there, you've got both mindful licensing objectives and particular benefits of nuisance. Outstanding none of those both objectives given the vicinity of the club, I stand about that. That's what we're querying, because if you're referring to Mr. Johnson, you better have very thoughts about how we use the word. I'm not aware of anyone in the immediate vicinity.
That's not correct. He lives immediately behind the new activity centre, as he's described in his statement.
was going to say the addresses that I passed over were part of the address that was on the membership, kind of the membership system that we have.
And where we've been past addresses by them.
Well, I'm sorry, that is wrong, factually wrong. I've seen his property. It's literally backing on to, as he describes in his, yeah. And also, I am representing John Garnett. That has been confirmed in an email, and he is a local resident as well. So I would ask that you reconsider that statement.
What else? All the addresses I can I can have new addresses, but I'm going to have to double check that. If you can say otherwise, I'm sure I'll be notified.
Thank you. As part of the application, there was an impact assessment undertaken internally, which concluded that there was no impact. I am of the view that an impact assessment should have been undertaken independently for a development, or sorry, a licensing application of this scale. Is it normal practice for David Lloyd to do their impact assessment internally and not have a third party independent professional body undertake that?
Not in my experience. And as I say, we still maintain it's a law application. There are changes to unlicensed areas that might be more significant. But as the license application goes, it is quite a modest one for a certain legal area.
Okay, I think that concludes my questioning.
Thank you. Do any of the councillors have any questions? Philip?
I will ask one question, please. The plan that we were directed to on page 43 contains the area under consideration. It's my understanding that the additional plans that you submitted, just to give a broader context, were simply illustrative. They don't actually have any bearing on our application today. You were just giving additional information to put it in the round.
The full plan of the club submitted with the
In my view, the sort of lines drawn were really illustrative. It wasn't an exact representation, sort of to a certain level of tolerance.
It's one of the architects.
Right. Okay.
Exactly. It's not, I'm not involved in that process. We receive the plans from the architect. And then
Right, thank you. I also have a question for the officer, please. There was comment about the fact there were meetings with club members raised earlier. Can I just confirm that to be compliant, it was simply to have the notices outside and to have an article in the local press? These additional meetings were an act of goodwill, if you like, by the club to give their members additional information. That's not required under the Act, is it?
That is quite correct, councillor.
Thank you.
in which case we'll now move in papers to Mr. Sweeney. Would you like to present your case?
I'm just pausing because I was just taking on board the response to the councillor's question. I think it's very, very important to note, and this is part of my case, that the applicant did not state that that plan is illustrative. He said it was prepared by the architect, so he could not confirm one way or the other. The plan itself clearly states it's as proposed. It doesn't say it's illustrative. It doesn't say it's included for illustration. It is part of the licensing application, and it cannot, therefore, be ignored. And that is a very important part of my case. My first part is I am of the view, very firmly of the view, that this licensing application was not correctly advertised, and I believe that strongly because I have asked so many members at David Lloyd, and believe me, if there had been a notice for them to see, they would have seen it. You say you have photographs of the on-site advertisements. I have not seen those. They were not included as part of the pack. So I do question whether or not this application was properly advertised, and that was the reason, one of the reasons I requested an adjournment so that it could be properly advertised on site. All they would need to do was put it in the reception through which every member has to pass, and on a lamppost at the entrance to the site, past which everybody has to drive. Then all the local residents would have been fully aware of this and be given time and opportunity to object and make representations. Secondly, and this is again a very important point, the description of this development has been cloudy, let's put it like that. The extract that was included within the application was only an extract. It was blurred. It was very difficult to interpret. We were not provided with more detailed plans at the meetings. We requested them. We were not provided with them. The first time we received detailed plans, and this is very important, detailed plans that you could read and interpret, was on the 12th of May in the information pack. There was no mention in that information pack that those plans were illustrative or anything else. They were the application plans. One was the existing licence boundary, one was the proposed. The proposed licence boundary is considerably larger than the existing, and it's far greater than the two yellow areas that you are asking me to restrict my comments to. The third point, which I think is also very important to note, is that the works have either already been completed, certainly the outside seating area and eating area to the side of the bar has been finished already, so those works have been completed. It is questionable, and I won't put it any further than that, whether alcohol is already sold in that area. There is a question over whether it was sold at the bar or taken to that area. I'll leave that open. But on the much larger area around the swimming pool, works have taken place. Hedgerows and bushes have been removed in the nesting season, I hasten to add, and that work to extend that licensing area is therefore underway. And that area is considerable. I would also argue that David Lloyd have tried to keep almost de minimise this application by restricting it to areas and in the description, constant referral to minimal. It is not. And that description in itself is wrong and should have been more accurately posted on notices. And I've said in my objection that there is likely to be more than 300 more daily users once these changes take place. I accept that those changes are not licensing changes, but they impact on the licensing because with 300 more daily users in a club which is already at bursting point, there will be impact on all licensing related matters, such as health and safety, such as noise, because this site is already very saturated and that intensity will increase. So that is a very important point to take on board. I have pointed out that there are local objectors. So these representations are made on behalf of members, residents of Ringwood and local residents, and that is very important to note. I personally have been a member of this club for over 20 years. I'm an active badminton, pickleball and paddle tennis player. Just like to add, I'm current European over 65 pickleball champion. All our facilities are being removed to be replaced by an activity centre, which is a substandard facility for both badminton and pickleball. It is important that that is mentioned, I think. So for all those reasons I've stated, I would ask that you either refuse this application or, as per my request within recent days, you ask for the application to be resubmitted, properly notified and properly described with accurate plans and accurate descriptions so that the members and local residents have a proper opportunity to lodge their objections. Thank you.
Mr. Sweeney, what experience and training do you have in licensing matters that you feel you can effectively impugn our officers, because you're effectively trying to say that the matters weren't dealt with properly?
Within my introduction, I gave you a brief introduction, but I have a degree and diploma in town planning, a master's degree in estate management. I am a qualified town planner. I have over 40 years of property experience, which has included some licensing experience, but not as an objector. I think more importantly probably is I have been a very active member of David Lloyd for 20 years and therefore are very close to how the club has operated and continues to operate, both in a licensing and sporting capacity. I am, I won't say a frequent user of the bar and dining areas, but I certainly do use them.
No further questions from me, thank you.
I have no further questions either. Mr. Sweeney, we get to the point in the procedure where we ask you to sum up. So this is just a précis in effect to just state your levels of objection without going into the full submission again.
Just for clarification, because I thought...
to explain within these procedures is that we operate I think, where everybody presents, and then we ask each person to just summarise. So, in other words, a summary or summarise your objections. So, a summary of your objections rather than the full case.
Okay. Well, I think I have covered everything I needed to within my last statement. To summarise, I think the main area is inadequate publicity, the fact that it's in part retrospective and in another part largely retrospective, that this is a difficult piece because I don't want to duplicate what I've already said. But I really do feel that this application needs to be resubmitted with all the detail that's necessary to enable local residents, members and people who live in Ringwood, because it is relevant due to overspill activities, are given a proper opportunity to make representations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Robson, a summary, please.
Thank you. I'll keep it fairly brief. The Licensing Act is always one that's meant to be quite a light touch and permissive regime, how many describe it. That the applicant will get to do what they want and put forward unless there's very good reasons to the contrary. And of course, your determination needs to be a very evidence-based one. At the end of the day, that's proportionate. I've heard a lot of challenging of the procedure and the publicity, but I haven't heard much put forward as evidence about an adverse impact on the licensing objectives, and I suggest no such evidence would exist with what is proposed. Guidance makes it quite clear you can take into account the track record of the business in terms of your decision making, and I'd suggest the business's track record is very good. There are no complaints with its current licensed areas, which are extensive, and I'd suggest that will be the same going forward as well. But if there are concerns in the future, there's legal avenues for those that have concerns with the procedure to follow, and there's legal avenues for those who have concerns about the operation of the premises to follow, such as a review process that was mentioned earlier. Granting the application would not require you to depart from your policy. It would not require you to depart from the guidance whatsoever. I suggest it's entirely appropriate within the framework of the licensing objectives to grant it fully on the terms put forward. And very importantly, your key advisors on the licensing objectives, the police, the environmental health, the health and safety teams, have no concerns. They've had the full consultation, not raised one issue or suggested a condition to change it. They are happy with what has been put forward in the application. Otherwise, they would be here today before you. And I'd invite you to grant the application in full as put forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We've now reached a stage where the committee will retire to reach a decision. I hope everybody feels that we've given ample opportunity for the matters to be put before us according to the restrictions of the licensing application. In which case, we will endeavour to send a decision to all parties within 5 working days. So thank you for attending this morning.
Thank you, Chair.